Welcome to TEPSA Talk, the podcast where leaders inspire, share, and grow together. TEPSA is dedicated to celebrating the incredible work happening in education. Each episode, we dive into meaningful conversations with leaders, change-makers, and innovators who are shaping the future of our schools. Whether you're looking for fresh ideas, encouragement, or a little spark to fuel your passion, TEPSA Talk is here for you. Imagine tuning in to hear how leaders are revolutionizing their schools, tackling challenges head-on, and fostering a culture of collaboration. Grab a coffee, hit play, and let's grow together. Welcome to TEPSA Talk.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to an all-new episode of the TEPSA Talk podcast. I'm your host, Todd Neslony, the Director of Culture and Strategic Leadership here at the Texas Elementary Principals and Supervisors Association. We are thrilled every week to bring you different thought leaders from around the world, and today we have Dr. Lamb on with us. Christy, thank you so much for being here. Tell everybody who you are.
Hi, thanks so much. Really excited to be here. Dr. Christy Lamb. I have been an educational leader for over 10 years, have served at the elementary and middle school levels as instructional coach and assistant principal and principal, and have also done some adjunct professorship at local universities for principal preparation.
Love it. And you're also super active on social media. I love following your stuff. I feel like it's very real, but also inspirational at the same time. But I'm like, oh, I just connect so much. So I'm excited to have this conversation today, Christy. And so, anytime we bring any guests on this podcast, I always kind of like to start with just hearing a little bit of your journey into school leadership, because I feel like there's always two different paths people take. One is they kind of felt led to be in that area, and the other one is they kind of felt pushed and then found out they loved it. And so how did you end up where you are today?
That's a really good question. The very first time I remember somebody bringing up leadership or the principalship to me, I was a fourth year classroom teacher, and one of the assistant superintendents actually brought up kind of vaguely like, oh, and someday you might be, we see you maybe being a principal or a leader here someday. And I thought, absolutely not. That is the last thing I want to do, is be in charge of all of this. And have everything, riding on me in my decision making. But, as you continue to take those baby steps into leadership, and you become a teacher leader and then becoming an instructional coach, and as you continue to bite off some of those levels of leadership, you're like, oh, I could also do this. So I would say it was a mix of both in terms of being led and being called to it. I'm one of those people who, and you probably have a lot of leaders on here who sometimes we just can't keep our mouths shut, right? We like to be involved in stuff. We like to fix things.
Yeah. And I can so resonate with that, just because the whole idea of, I'm not interested in that position. And then as you take more and more little leadership opportunities, you're like, okay, maybe I could do some of this. I still don't know what I'm doing, but maybe I could do it a little bit.
Yeah. And it is humbling. It's humbling too when you get to a point and you're like, oh, I could do this better than so-and-so. And then you get into the role and you're like, oh, never mind. Now I get it.
There's a lot they weren't telling me.
Yeah.
Well, something that you have a heart for and that is really important to you is creating systems, not just for kids. I mean, obviously as educators, we always want to have these systems in place for all that, but the systems for the adults. And so as we dive into this, I want to kind of understand, is this something that's always been a part of you and your psyche? Like, I've got to have these things in place? Or did you reach a point where you're like, nope, I had to create out of necessity?
So I definitely always knew systems were important, and really thinking about, those things that you repeat more than one time, or if you're repeating them on a daily or a weekly or a monthly basis, that you really have to have something outlined for them. And I just realized that with adults, especially in the school, if you don't have those pieces, your vision doesn't matter because you don't actually have a way to encourage it. Your culture doesn't matter because you don't have a systemic way to maintain it. Even your philosophies and your values on behavior don't matter because, again, we don't have the systems to sustain those positive values. And so that was always something I knew I needed. I didn't realize how hard it would be to put into action. And I feel like it's one of those things and I don't know if everybody had this experience. I feel like a lot of principal preparation, whether it's books, whether it's, university courses, whatever it might be, is very much this is what you need to do, but they don't actually tell you how to do it. So how do you put a system in place to
Yep.
to track behavior data and then to use that behavior data to make plans and move forward?
And there's so many different perspectives on this and experience that people bring. And so sometimes it can feel like I don't even know what system to put into place first. And so if I'm an administrator and I'm at a campus where we haven't done really well with systems, like I know that's a weakness, but I'm also overwhelmed with the thought of it. What is your advice for that leader who doesn't even know where to begin, like what system they should do first?
That's a really good question. So I actually have what I kind of call the core four of the things that you've got to have in place before any of your ideas or any of your initiatives will actually work. And so this is going to be, I don't know, maybe this will be controversial. I am actually a really big proponent that one of the first things you need to have in place is effective meetings. Um, because
Yes.
every
Yeah.
single thing that happens in our building as an adult collective happens through a meeting, whether it's a staff meeting or a professional development, that's technically a meeting. If it's our PLCs, if it's a parent meeting, if it's whatever kind of thing that's happening, we usually do that thing through meetings. And I have just sat through, and you have too, and probably all the listeners, we've sat through so many meetings that don't actually get anything done. And so that's always one of the kind of like the foundational things that I work with principals on, is making sure that our meetings are really, really effective. Did that surprise you?
Okay. Well, I not at all, but I love that you say this because, I think we live in this world of sound bites and this world of social media. And sometimes we can hear things like, "Oh my gosh, you want to make people happy? You get rid of all the meetings." And as you just said, and as we both know, like you have to have meetings. Like we can't get around them. But the reason people may hate meetings is because they haven't been done well. Because I can think of meetings that we've had at TEPSA where I was really thankful for the meeting because it was done well and we got to the point and we got things done, and like we had to get there, and we couldn't have done it without that meeting. And so I love that you say this, that's one of the things. So to me that's not controversial, but I can see how it's not a pretty soundbite out there, but the reality is if you want people to appreciate the meeting, you've got to have systems in place to make it valuable.
Yeah, your meetings have to be really, really good. And I also think that as a leader, anytime you have adults together, like your faculty together, it's a chance for you to reiterate what your values are. It's a chance to reiterate the vision for your school, and it's a chance to do the work to reach those values and to reach that vision. It's not just a place to talk about them, it's a place to do the work to get there. And I think sometimes we do a lot more talking than doing in meetings. And so then they start to get a bad rap, and we talk about canceling all of our staff meetings for the rest of the year.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Well, as you're talking about this, I'm thinking, some of the listeners may be thinking, we've got some pretty great systems in place, or so I think. How do you personally get feedback about the systems that are in place to see if it needs to be changed or if it's on the right direction?
That's a good question. I talk a lot about shared leadership and committees. That's another place that I have seen as a system in some buildings doesn't necessarily work the way that it's intended to, right? So we always want to have staff input, and it's a hard balance, right? Because we don't want to put more on our staff, and also that's the heartbeat of our building, right? Our teachers and our staff they're the heartbeat of our building, so we have to have them supporting all of the initiatives that we do. And so I really try to run not only efficient meetings but really efficient committees. And so I am not the only one as a school leader who is essentially leading meetings, right? We want to train everybody, all of our shared leadership committees, to lead really effective meetings. And so hopefully it's now not just me as the principal leading the meeting and now having to get feedback on if it went well, right? It's because we have a team that have created agendas together. We have, as a team, have been trained on how effective meetings should look and what we value as a team. And now we're not even having to have some of that discourse of taking a survey at the end or something like that. It's just something that's really already ingrained in our culture and the way we do things. But it does take a lot of work to set up in the beginning.
Well, and and I think that that's such a reminder too of reminding us when we were in the classroom. Like if we wanted a successful year, there was a lot we had to do at the beginning.
Oh,
There was a
yeah.
lot of the expectations and the rules and the consistency, and then the students were more likely to stick with it. I think
Yes.
we forget sometimes like that with school leadership of it's not going to come easy. But I also love that you said we had to be trained in how to do this and practice it, and it wasn't just a survey sent at the end saying what'd you like, what'd you not like. But I think something that you said that really resonated with me too is your distributive leadership, of you making sure that you don't have to lead every meeting just because you're the principal. And for some people, I think that's going to be freeing to hear, because I think sometimes we get hired in this position and we think, I'm in charge. I've got to lead everything now. And we don't know how to lead it all because we're not an
It's so
expert at
much.
everything.
And
So
it's
were you
so
someone who
much.
was really natural for you to pass it on?
No, I
Or were you
remember
like me where I had to really learn how to do that?
my first year of principal, that was probably one of the like hardest transitions in terms of my workload, was knowing that we have these committees, knowing that we do have shared leadership, and that was an expectation in the district. And I had a really great staff who wanted to be involved. But coming in every single we had weekly committee meetings, and having to prep really quality meetings over and over was really difficult. And so just thinking about having to do that made me realize that I had to come up with a different system. And so really trying to make sure that I came up with that and taught it. And then you just have to reiterate it so much. Even just the other day, in a meeting, I have an agenda with staff, and like it just starts to veer off. And having to be very consistent of,
Always.
hey, I want to talk about that. Let's go ahead and put that kind of on the side, put it on the bottom of the agenda. We can put it on next week. But right now we're talking about this. This is what we want to walk away with today, as opposed to every single deviation and little route that we could take.
Well, and it shows the other people in the meeting that you really do value the time of them for being there, and that it's not saying we can't talk about this. It's saying let's get through our agenda, and then those who need to go can go, but those who want to
Yeah.
stay and chat about this can. So I love that you said that too. And so thinking through this though, maybe I'm an administrator who I'm at a campus and it's my first year there. And they've got a lot of systems in place, but they're not really working.
Yes.
And some people really think they are working. And so, what advice do you have for that administrator who's like, I'm ready to change systems that have been in place where I am now for years, but I'm new there and I can see some of the things that aren't working? How do I get the rest of the team on board with some of that change?
So I always like to try to create cognitive dissonance in that case, right? Like this happens all the time in our leadership where we think one thing as a leader, like we think we need to move in a certain direction, and a lot of people or some people don't believe that we need to move in that direction. And so I think with teams, and if we're talking specifically about meetings and about, shared leadership in general, one of the things that I always try is just saying, hey, I have this new system that I want to try, or I have a new agenda approach that I want to try. Can I practice it with you all and get feedback and see if it's something we might want to move to? And so just like showing them that what could be is often a way
Yeah.
for them to be like, oh, wow, we just planned an entire year's worth of PD in 55 minutes. Okay, sign me up for this new agenda, as opposed to forcing it. Obviously, you might be in a
Yeah.
situation where you can force it because maybe people don't care as much and you can just kind of make the decision on your own. But that's always one little trick that I've learned that has helped a lot is let me try this. If you don't like it, we'll change it, but let me just try and see. And usually people are like, oh, wow, this was way more effective.
I love that though, because just throwing it out there saying, hey, I'd love to try this with y'all also makes me feel kind of a little special as the person in the group going, okay, yeah, we'll test it out here. Because then, like you said, if it does work, it's such an eye-opening experience, that moment for everybody at the table, that it's easy to use that
Yeah.
again moving forward.
Yeah.
And
I've
so,
also, oh, sorry.
go ahead. No, go.
I've also done, depending on the type of leader you are and your personality, I've also done where I take feedback at the very beginning, either beginning or end of the year, kind of depending on when you're doing your planning. And so let's say we have an instructional leadership team meeting, or instructional leadership team, I'm sorry. I might lead them through some sort of a protocol where we say, what is our instructional team doing well? Like, what are we kicking butt at? Where does our instructional team need to improve? Like, what's our vision for this team? What should we really be accomplishing? And then looking at what is versus where we want to be, and then trying to come up with, okay, then what are those action steps to get us there? And hoping to lead that conversation through whatever system you're really trying to get. Usually people see the gap, and so then you're there to kind of help them figure out what systems could help you close that gap.
There's so many good nuggets here. But I'd be remiss if I didn't ask, how do you maintain sanity in the midst of trying to do all of this? Because it's important. It's necessary. It makes things easier in the long run. But I know, and I know you know, that there are points along this journey where you're like, it's too much. I can't. How do you personally just keep it going, and what advice would you have for others who are struggling right now too?
That's a really good question. I think that for me, it is like relentlessness in terms of anytime I have the adults together in my building, whether it's a small team or a large team, that time to me is precious because we don't get that very often. And you especially don't get it very often when it's not interrupted. And so I have made that one of the pillars of my leadership is that when adults are together, it is precious time and we are going to protect it with everything we can, whether that is, the agenda and sticking to it, our roles and responsibilities on it, on a team or in a meeting, and just really trying to protect everyone involved, including me, right? Like including me, making sure that I am present and not, sitting there and emailing or something along those lines, making sure that I am present. And so it's a relentlessness on the part of the leader, especially in the beginning, because you do have to establish that new culture. And then I do think too, I had to prioritize and deprioritize some stuff in the beginning. And it's just like in the,
Yeah.
with classroom management as a teacher, right? How many new teachers do we tell at the beginning of the year? It's okay if you start content late, right? It's okay to
Yeah.
spend the time
Yeah.
you need to develop your culture. It's okay to spend time to develop your routines. And to me, this is really no different, is that in the beginning of your tenure, if you do start to develop these things, you get to move faster on the science of reading
Right.
later because you
Right.
have systems in place to move it forward. You get to move faster on trauma-informed, responses because you have systems in place to move that initiative along.
Such good advice. I love it. Well, Dr. Lamb, if they are listening today and you've said so many good things and there's just one thing you want people to hear, what is your one thing for our listeners or viewers today?
Well, I think the number one thing would be that leadership is really, really hard. And um, you can do things to make it a little bit easier. You can do things to take some pieces off of your plate while still moving your building forward and growing your staff, and giving your building what it needs.
I love it. Well, Christy, if people want to connect with you, learn more about you, get some resources from you, how can they do that?
I'd love for you to follow me on Instagram or social media at Dr. Christy Lamb, or you can find me online at drchristylamb.com.
There we go. Thank you so much, Christy, for being our guest today. Thank you, everybody, for joining or listening or watching another new podcast. Make sure you go on and subscribe, like, review. All the things help this get out to a broader audience. And we can't wait to see all of you in June at our TEPSA Summer Conference. Join us again next week for another all-new episode.